Like Wendy Williams once said, the Nile is a river in Egypt. Your husband is gay. Hello and welcome to my November wrap up. How I'm going to start doing my wrap ups just so it's easier for me is even when I read a series, I'm just going to talk about the books in the order that I read them. So that's what I will be doing today. So starting off, the first book I finished in the month of November was The Exiled Queen by Cinda Williams Chima. A quick synopsis on The Demon King, the first book. This is the second book in the Seven Realms series. Hansen Cuffs Alistair is this young boy who lives in Rag Market, the more rougher side of the kingdom he's a part of, and he is known as Cuffs because he has these like cuffs on his wrist that have never come off and he can't take them off, and it's just him dealing with like these wizards that he runs into at the very beginning of the story, and he gets this amulet that starts causing him some trouble, but amulets are what like the wizards use. And then also the princess and like the other main character of the story, Raisa Anna Mariana, who is the heir to the Grey Wolf throne. She is just dealing with, potential betrothals. Her mom keeps trying to get her to get engaged, as well as her wanting to be the most proactive and like useful princess that she can possibly be. That's just starting off with like what the Demon King was about and all these stuff. I gave The Exiled Queen 4 stars, and I'm gonna reread these next year, so probably this will get a 5 once I reread it. But yes, this book was very good. When I first finished The Demon King, it had me really intrigued. It had me want to keep reading. So I picked this one up immediately, and they go into like more of an academic setting, which I love. I love academic stuff. So it was a very good book and I loved it. And then next I read On Dublin Street by Samantha Young. I'm not going to do a synopsis. I did make a video that no one has watched, but it's okay. I give it 2 stars. It's just a romance I read in middle school, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to reread it was because Joss as a character has just like stuck with me a lot. So I wanted to just to see like what me being older, what I thought of it. I remember thinking that like Joss and I were actually like similar, but rereading it this time I'm like, I'm very happy we are not as alike as I used to think we were, thankfully. The next book I read was The Grey Wolf Throne, the 3rd book in the Seven Realms series. I gave this book 5 stars and I read it in one day. It is that good. I could not tell you the last time I read this book a book and it's in its entirety. I think it's over 500 pages. Yes, it's over 500 pages long, and I read it in one day. It was so good. The story really ends up picking up, and I didn't realize how invested I was in the characters until I was reading this, and I could not put it down because I had to make sure everyone was okay and I knew what happened. Like, I was stressed out reading but it was so good and it kept me reading and it was great. Next, I read The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. The synopsis is there's this young thief who has been imprisoned, but he is offered a chance at freedom if he's able to steal this artifact. I gave this book 3 stars. It's short and sweet, but there isn't a whole lot of depth with the like characters in the story. But I'm already reading the second one. I'm in the middle of it. It's like The Queen of Atolia, and that one has a strong start. It's picking up, things are like brewing, so I'm like, okay, I'm liking where the story is going, and I'm interested to see where it will continue to go. The next books I read were The Lux and Rumors by Anna Gaberson. A synopsis: these books take place in 1899 New York upper class society. So Elizabeth and Diana Holland are 2 of the main characters. There's also Penelope and Lena. Those are like the 4 main characters, and Elizabeth ends up being engaged to the son of a very rich man, and she doesn't want to be engaged to him because she's in love with a stable boy. Diana ends up falling in love with Henry, Elizabeth's fiance, who also like falls in love with her. But then Penelope, she was expecting to marry Henry, so she spends all her energy trying to sabotage Elizabeth. And then Lena, she's Elizabeth and Diana's maid, she also wants to like become more a part of higher society because she is in love with, I believe, Will, who Elizabeth is also in love with. Okay, so very twisted, a lot going on. It's been compared to Gossip Girl from what I've heard. I gave The Lux 2.75 stars and I gave Rumors 2.5 stars. I was liking The Lux at first when I started reading it, but very quickly it just turns into all these very strong, distinct, ambitious young women. Instead of them being, I don't know, doing a bit more, they're all just like fighting and sabotaging each other for men. And I was not with that. I have all of the books, mostly because I got them because the covers are like super pretty, but I will not be continuing the series, and I honestly probably will unhaul these. I had Rumors upside down, so there we go. Then the next book I read after that was The Crimson Crown by Cinda Williams Chima, the final book in the Seven Realms series. This book got 5 stars. It solidified the series as a new favorite for me. I can't wait to read it reread the whole series in 2025. I'm going to make a video about it, all that stuff. It took me a bit longer to read, and I read other books in between this one and The Grey Wolf Throne because I didn't want it to be over. I'm like, I don't want it to end. I don't want it to be over. It is a happy ending, but I could read 4, 5, 6, 10 more books in this series with these characters, but it's over. But I'm definitely going to be reading more Cinda Williams Chima. This was the first series I've read by her. She's only just released a book. She has a few other series, and I will be reading them ASAP. Next, I read The Young Elites by Marie Lu. This book is about after the blood fever has gone through this land, killing a lot of people, but also mutating the young kids who got it before. Our main character, Adelina, she is a Malfetto is what they're called. She doesn't know exactly what her powers are, but due to her scarring and things, she's, been ostracized a bit, and her father wants to marry her off to this really creepy, gross man. So she runs away, and her father ends up catching her, but she ends up killing him with her powers, but she's not 100% even sure how they worked. And because she gets caught, she's arrested and she's going to be burned at the stake. But then she is rescued by the Young Elite, a group of Malfettos who use their power to resist their oppression and their discrimination. They take in Adelina and they try to train her on her powers, but as her powers begin to grow and develop, she begins to question where her priorities lie. So despite having read this series in its entirety before, I did only give this book 2.75 stars. Something I'm just starting to realize with YA series, a lot of the times, and in the case of this book, the first book is just introduction. It's just setting up the world, it's introducing you to the characters, getting a feel for them, and then things pick up in the next book. And the next book, The Rose Society, is on my favorites list, so I'm interested to see if it holds up. But unfortunately, this one didn't, but with it being YA, I'm a little bit more forgiving. Next, I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. The synopsis, for those that don't know, is when Kelsier, a mistborn, a person who is able to ingest metals and burn them and get powers from them, when he finds Vin, a poor, young, and mistreated mistborn like him, he takes her under his wing and helps train her in allomancy, that's what it's called, in the hopes that she will be able to help him and his crew take down the Lord Ruler and the Final Empire. I give this book 3.5 stars. Having read The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, also by Brandon Sanderson this year, I have to say, I can't lie, Mistborn is a little boring, but not because it's bad. It's just the action, the kind of action sequences and things aren't really my thing. Similar to like the use of the magic system, I'm just like, it just, I don't know. It's just not like hitting super hard for me. It's still good. And at the time of filming this, I just finished The Well of Ascension yesterday, and they're good books. Like, please do not misconstrue me, but it's just like not for me. Along with the action just being not for me, there is a lot of planning and scheming, and they're doing heists and these things, and it's just, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. And I would say, yeah, if Mistborn was a movie, if these were made into movies, they would be very quiet movies. I don't like fully know what I'm trying to say with that, but it's just like what I gave, and notoriously I don't really like quiet movies. Then the next book I read, a romantasy, Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. The synopsis of this book: Kaoru, a girl with naturally blue hair who has no idea who she is or where she came from, but she was raised by different monsters and things, while mysterious burned handprints begin appearing on the door of Brimstone's workshop, the man who raised her, or the creature who raised her, but also she works for. Those handprints start to pop up and things start shifting a bit, and once she runs into the angel that is responsible for putting those hands on the door, she finds herself inexplicably drawn to him. So I gave this book 5 stars. This is one of my favorite books, one of my favorite series. It does start off a little shaky, a little on like unsteady footing, but once it gets its footing, it's really good. And in all honesty, there is insta-love, but in the scheme of the story overall, it makes sense. It just happens like really fast, but I think it's okay and it's fair. And something I just appreciate about Laini Taylor is not only like her like world and her characters and like the romance and the passion of it all, she's not afraid to get a little brutal. She's not afraid to have things get a little violent, and I appreciate that. Next, I read The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson. The synopsis of this book: Princess Elisa, carrier of the Godstone, is married off to a handsome and worldly king, where she moves into his castle and into his kingdom after they're married. And it is not too long after that where she's kidnapped and she's taken to the desert, where there are different refugees and people who have been caught in the crosshairs of these different conflicts, who are desperate for her help, or for the help of Princess Elisa and her magical godstone. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Like I said with the Young Elites, just when it comes to the first book of a YA, it's all mostly introduction, but in the case of this book, it was better than I was expecting it to be, or than I remember it being. I've read this book before. I like the use of religion and magic, and specifically just like how the godstone works and like the relationship with it. It's just really cool. But it's like at the beginning of the story, all this stuff happens, and then kind of in the middle, nothing happens, and then everything picks up near the end. So I am very excited to keep going with this trilogy. Next, I read Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare, the second book in the Infernal Devices series. Just a quick synopsis: Will, Tessa, and Jem continue to work together with Charlotte and protecting their institute against Mortmain and those who want to take it away from Charlotte, as well as their interpersonal relationships getting more intertwined and connected. I gave this book 3 stars. I'm starting to get to know and like the characters a bit more, and I just, in general, I like the world, I like the magic. It's just, this is a low-key spoiler, but just with how Cassandra Clare does her romance, it just kind of doesn't work for me. Like, characters will be talking or something, and then they'll just start kissing, and it's like, whoa, like, how do we get here? And then, like I said, low-key spoiler, I'm still confused as to why Jem proposed to Tessa. I understand with Shadowhunters, and especially in Jem's case, they don't expect to live very long, but in my opinion, I'm just like, why'd you have to propose though? Like, why did they propose? Especially like with how she was with Will, and like all, and stuff with Jem only just started with this book, and they're engaged. I'm like, okay, I just don't get it, but we'll see what happens in the next book. The next book I read was Chicano Frankenstein by Daniel A. Olivas. This book is set in a futuristic America where the process of reanimation brings people back to life after they've died, only they just don't have any memories from their life before. But due to an up and coming election, the reanimation process has like bans and things like put on it, so things for reanimated people, or stitchers as they call them, are becoming a little bit more difficult. In the perspective of our nameless protagonist, we get the feel of the domestic life of a reanimated person. I gave this book 3 stars. The message is pretty clear, pretty straightforward, and the book is a little bit mundane, but I think that's the point. A lot of people who are just trying to live their lives are demonized by politicians and the media. What else is new? Causing unnecessary harm to those people who are causing no harm to others. And parallel to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, her Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, he just wants connection and community, and in retaliation for not getting it, he goes on a murder spree. In this case, in this Chicano Frankenstein, the man does have a physical distinction that makes it clear that he's been reanimated, but he is really just a regular person like everybody else. He just doesn't have a sense of who he is because of his lack of memory. It was short and sweet, and I would have given it a higher rating probably if it was like a bit longer and a bit more depth, but I just have to be more connected to a story to give it a higher rating. And the last book I'm going to be talking about is The Sons of El Rey by Alex Espinosa. This is a multi-generational story about a family with the patriarch of Ernesto, who was a very big lucha libre star in Mexico, and then his son, Ernesto's son, Freddy, who's trying to save his father's gym in Los Angeles, and then Julian, Freddy's son, who is trying to navigate his queerness, his romantic life, as well as his professional career. I gave this book 3 stars as well. I would say that the message of the story is pretty hit you over the head, but if you look at the cover and know anything about lucha libre, it makes sense as to why that is. This is a story about coming to grips with who you are and being honest about it, and how if you try to repress or ignore it, it will just turn into something that is out of your control, a la No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. One issue I can say that is a pretty significant one is the one female character with a consistent POV throughout the story, Elena, who is Ernesto's wife. 1, has the least amount of page time, which I suppose is the point. 2, her main conflict in the story is the fact that her husband isn't attracted to her. Like Wendy Williams once said, "Denial is a river in Egypt. Your husband is gay." And then also 3, she gets this like monologue or soliloquy, I'm not sure which one it is, just about like how women shouldn't be deceived and how women have to fight and resist harder than men normally do, which is true. But I just can't ignore the fact that this book is written by a man. So this female character is giving this message, but it was still words written by a man, you know? All of the male characters have like multiple points of conflict that come up in their stories, but with Elena, it really is only in regards to Ernesto. And it's a little frustrating, but it is a solid story, and there is a twist, and the twist got me. I don't really read books with twists, but the twist in this case got me for sure. And with how the ending is written, the pacing picks up in a really nice way, and it just helped me finish this book super fast. Those were all the books I read in November. I didn't read any manga this month. I DNF'd one book, but I'm going to talk about it. It's not even worth it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want want to see more of me and hear how good of a singer I am, you can check out my music channel and original music all under the name of Shy Fighter. Like if you want to like, subscribe if you want to subscribe. And to all the people who are currently subscribed and who are future subscribers, just letting you know that if/when you subscribe, we are now friends. Just letting you know. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you when I see you. Farewell.